Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm showing you a page in my DIY art journal. So I'm going through the pages and I'm going to choose one, and this page is probably my favorite one. It reminds me of the sand and the sea. So what I've done is I've chosen a focal point, and I'm showing you there a picture that I got from Pixabay, and I have created a stencil from the starfish and am placing the stencil where I want it to be on the page. So just carefully just putting it where I want it, and then I am taking the other part of the stencil, putting that over top because I'm going to use that as a stamp, and I am just taping that down to keep it in place. And again, I'm showing you the reference photo, and I am using my Gelli plate to mix colors and use it as a stamping tool. So there I'm showing you a couple colors. I'm using cadmium red deep. I was also using titanium white, and then there's some yellow there to make the base color of the starfish. So again, just adjusting as needed. So it's kind of like a fleshy, corally color, and there I'm just putting it over top, the Gelli plate over top, and there's still some like color from the last Gelli print session that I've done, so that will transfer on there, and I think it looks pretty neat. So I'm lifting that up and showing you and comparing the colors to the reference photo, and there you can see some of the dried paint from the last session, which I thought looked pretty good because it kind of matches the sea colors. And again, I'm going to put a second layer because it was kind of didn't show up too well. So I'm taking a makeup brush, not a makeup brush, a makeup sponge, sorry, and just stenciling in some lighter color. So just tapping that in. So I've got my titanium white again, and that's unbleached titanium actually, and I'm concentrating that color in the center of the starfish where the lighter areas are, and then you can see like the tips of its legs. I've kept that peachy color. Right there I'm using red oxide and the unbleached titanium, and I am concentrating that in the center of the starfish where more of the corally color is, and then on the ends of his legs, or tentacles I guess. I don't know what you call those. But in the reference photo, he's got some reddish corally colors more towards the tips of his legs and in the center. So just continuing with that, the makeup sponge, using that Gelli plate again as a mixing tool, lifting that up, and I think that's looking better. You can see that it's showing up better on the page. So now I just take that off of there, and so far so good. And there's my second stencil that I've made. So that's the details. So the first part of the stencil was the base shape, and then the second stencil are all the little details and dots on his body. And I think this is called a maybe a chocolate chip starfish, I'm not sure, but that's what it reminds me of. So again, I just lined that second part of the stencil up, taping it down, and now I'm going to use some darker colors here. So I've got black mixed in with what I've already got down, and again just using the makeup brush and tapping that into the holes, trying to get all those little details in. And there's not much else to say at this point. As you can see, I'm just continuing to mix the color, just tapping that down, and it's pretty cool how it turns out. So it's pretty neat to make a two-step stencil this way, because that helps. It just helps speed things up. And so there's that. So it's looking pretty cool. And here I'm just showing you, tried to show you a closer up there. And just continuing on looking at my reference photo, comparing it to what I've got. So now I've got my paintbrush and I'm trying to find some gray paint to put in the center of those little dots. They're like little I don't know, like horns or something. They're not horns, I don't know what you call them. I'm not an expert on starfish, but the tips of those little spikes are lighter. So they're dark around the bottom, and then they become, I guess, more grayish at the top. So I ended up grabbing, instead of a gray, it was like a silver color, and it made it pretty shiny. I didn't really like that, so I ended up doing something else with that. I think I put some colored pencil over top to kind of knock that shininess down, because I thought I had a gray, but it ended up being like this metallic silver, which I just went with it. Once I realized what it was, I just continued on with it and just figured I would, if I didn't like it, I would fix it. So now I have my bucket of colored pencils, and I'm doing the details with colored pencils. So I'm just looking at my reference photo and using several different colors. So I'm using a light, like cream color. Most of these pencils are Prismacolor, and just lightening up areas, going around. And the colored pencils are a slow medium, so this is why I ended up speeding this video up. So here's a gray. I'm going in and adding some shadow. Now I'm taking a black. I'm going around all of those little spikes, covering the acrylic paint a little bit to kind of get it to blend in. So just taking my time and going around each one of those. So I'm going through picking out different colors. I think this one here is the poppy red. So each one of these spikes has a few colors in it. There's like some black, some grays, white, and some of the corally colors. Now I'm going around the edges of the legs, so I'm adding some shadow under the legs here so that it pops out from the background. And then the tips of his legs are also, they've got some black on the tips, as well as like the corally color. So I alternate between the black, the poppy red, the cream, the gray to add in detail. So I chose the colored pencils because they give me more control, and I can get into the little crevices and all the little areas and just do a tighter picture there, tighter focal point. And bear with me here, the silence. This is my second voiceover. So I'm getting there. I'm practicing, and it's getting there. So now I was using the lighter color to kind of blend in the darker colors. Still continuing to go around. Now I've got the black and going in, doing all of the little shading there that'll give the starfish some dimension. So now the legs, you can tell, will have a form to it besides just a flatness on the page. So each one of these spikes, I just go through and just carefully take my colored pencil, do some details, some shading. Here I'm adding in I added in a spike that didn't show up on the stencil, so I just created another spike there. And now I'm just kind of looking at my reference photo, kind of thinking, you know, what am I going to do next? So I just continue on with those 4 colors, just kind of working not in one area, kind of skip around to different areas. So just continuing on with the shading and putting in the detail, trying to get a more realistic look. It's not going to be hyper realistic, but I wanted it to at least have some detail there, and the color pencil helps me do that. So here I'm adding more of the lighter color, trying to use that to, you know, help blend the darker colors in. Adding the shadow just a little bit at a time. I'm really taking my time here. When you add details to things, you want to take your time. If you want a more realistic look, you just kind of take your time, just calm down and relax and just look at all the colors that you can see there and put them where you see them, and the lights and the darks. And as you can see, this leg that I'm working on here, or the tentacle, whatever it's called, it's starting to pop out from the rest of the starfish. So you can see it's starting to stand out. It's starting to look more realistic. Now I'm just continuing on, skipping over to another part of the starfish. So another leg there, adding more detail to that leg. And as you can see, it's starting to pop that leg out. And so there we are, adding some gray in to help kind of shade that in and fade that black in. Then skipping around to the, using the black. So I'm just alternating between all the colors. Now you can see where I shaded that above that leg there, and you can see that pop out just a little bit. Now I'm adding more of that poppy red color, and you're going to see that leg take on more dimension as I continue to work and alternate between the colors. And it's neat to see it just kind of to take shape there. Every little detail that you put in, it just makes it pop out even more and make it, more realistic. Now I'm working on this leg. Now part of this leg at the bottom was covered by some sand, so he kind of looks like he's injured actually. So he looks like he's got a bite out of his leg, but he doesn't. He's been covered. Part of it's underneath the sand, and since I couldn't get a lot of detail and put every little grain of sand in there, it kind of still looks like he just had a chunk bit out of his leg, but it's okay. I could have fixed it, just kind of painted over it, but I left it as it was. And I didn't want to do like a lot of detail in the sand because I wanted that jelly print, all that texture and all those colors and everything from that background to stand out and be part of it. So I just wanted like a mixture of a randomness, a cool randomness, plus kind of a realistic look as well. So I like the combination. Okay, so this is the finished product. I had put a coat of clear gesso, a couple of coats of clear gesso over top afterwards, so that I could get more detail with the colored pencil. So the clear gesso just gives it some texture and some grab, because the page was pretty smooth and it was hard to get the colored pencil to show up without adding some grab. And I had used a white colored pencil to add all of these little, as you can see, all of these white streaks across the page, which gives it the look of the highlights, the waves, so it gives it that look that the starfish is underwater. So I'm showing you here that I actually ended up using a pastel, what do you call those, the chalk pastel for that, because the clear gesso gives it that rough texture and it eats up your pencil pretty fast, and it still didn't show up very well, but it took the white pastel really well. And I just kind of randomly added all of those little streaks, those little waves, the highlights where the sun catches, you know, the waves of the water, and put it over top of the starfish, and, you know, part of the blue section, you know, the sand and everything. And I think that worked out pretty well. So when I put the chalk pencil, or the chalk pastel over top, I also rubbed it in with my finger because it was pretty bright, so I would just take my finger and then rub over top of the pastel to smooth that out, and I like it. I think it turned out cool. I think it turned out pretty realistic. If I had to do it over again, I'd probably, maybe I'd fix that bottom leg there, but I don't know. I think the combination of the jelly printed background and the detail, the focal point of the starfish, makes it look really cool. So I appreciate you guys watching, and if you like this, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to me and hit that notification. I've got more videos coming out. I've got a cool project coming up with something that I found in the dumpster, so stay tuned for that, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye bye, guys.